Welcome to another fun-filled weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, I am Sydney Brown, which is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Kim McGee on the Twitter and at Kim_McGee on the IG.
You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com for more details. You can follow our podcast, Second City Sports, along with the other podcast programming from War Media by simply going to War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. Just type in that search engine box on all podcast platforms. War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And also we're on YouTube at War Media. Once again at WARR Media. That's on YouTube. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. And as we take a bow and give kisses, thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we are unapologetically fun. Lakeena, I love what we do here as we talk basketball for this first segment. What I didn't like was since the NBA is back up and running, we'll start local as usual. The Chicago Bulls. I know it's nothing to laugh at, but sometimes you got to laugh to keep from crying. The Chicago Bulls start off the second half of the season with a big loss to the Philadelphia 76ers on Thursday by the score of 127-105. Dwight Howard turned back the clock, led the Sixers with 18 points, 12 rebounds. Lauri, who's back from injury for the 100th time, led Chicago with 23 points and 4 rebounds. Before we break this down, Lakeena, I did watch the highlights to be truthful about it. Maybe the NBA misled me in some way. Did Charles Barkley play for the Sixers?
like 25 years ago or 27 years ago, something like that.
I thought he was out on the court on Thursday. I'm not sure. Did Allen Iverson play in that game?
Hasn't played there in about 15 years, I think.
Oh, okay. Was Jerry Stackhouse out there?
I think it's been longer for him in a Sixers uniform. I mean, look, it's. I mean, look, it's. I think that. Look, I thought that maybe it was gonna, I thought the game was gonna be close. I think a lot of people did, especially with Embiid and both Embiid and Simmons out. Of course, contact tracing and such. Mm-hmm. We talked about it on a podcast a couple of days ago, but. Look, Tobias Harris scored 24. He kind of stepped it up there, 16-9 when he scores over 20 points. Dwight Howard, who I think people forget is actually on the Sixers. People forget about that. Mm-hmm. He had 18 off the bench. So, Matthias DeBow, had 13. Made some great steals and such. He had 5 steals. So, I mean, I think Doc probably told him, okay, look, guys, this Bulls team is actually pretty decent. So y'all can't be going to the club. So, I mean, look, there's no excuse. And look, Billy Donovan was very, we know how very transparent he is. And after the game, he was, he basically said, look, look, we sucked. We didn't deserve to win the game, and we didn't deserve to play in that game. I mean, look, Lauri Markkanen, the sucker of Lauri, as I call it. I was talking to our buddies, friend of the show, Matt Peck and Dave Watson, and their Bulls Outsiders on Hot Mic and on YouTube. You guys,
we got to bring Dave over here.
Yeah, I got to reach out to him. He's following me on Twitter now too, so I got to reach out to him because he's very, very smart and very, very funny. And I think that Lauri, once people were giving up on Lauri, he pulls you back in. I mean, look, Zach LaVine did his thing, had 19. Kobe White, he didn't shoot the ball well, but he shot well from 3, so he had 18. But that's about it. I mean, Wendell Carter Jr., I mean, it just you're back to that again. Tony Bradley basically just kind of molded him. And, when Howard was out there, he just hammered him. Otto Porter Jr., in his first came back too, he, 3 points, so he wasn't very productive. Patrick Williams struggled. So I think we're kind of going, not back into reality as far as this Bulls team is concerned. Say, okay, you know what? We're not at Philly's level yet, even without their 2 top stars. We're not at that level yet. So let's just, let's just, forget all about all that, what we were saying before, right before the break.
Here's the thing that I told you guys I was most concerned about for the last few weeks regarding this Bulls team. This season was about evaluation for individual players, and I still believe that now. You saw what happened on Thursday, as you mentioned. This team is not where it wants to be yet, but they still have a long way to go. Like you mentioned, the comments that Billy Donovan said after the game were valid. If I'm not going to coach, if you're not going to play, I'm not going to coach. Stealing a phrase for Blackhawks hockey head coach Mike Keenan there. Uh, this team needs to be knocked back into reality. Hopefully they can bounce back soon. This is going to tell the sign whenever their next game is. I don't have the schedule in front of me yet, but whenever the next game is, this team needs to turn it around. And I'm not going to overvalue this team. Now, I'm not going to say it's over for them. They're trash. They're back to the way things were the last few years. I'm not going to go there either. But there's certain guys that, let me be honest, Lakeena, I think I said it before. If not, I'll say it again. The two players that I'm done with, and I'm taking this to like a relationship level, you give people chance after chance after chance, and then it's the red flags are there. It's so obvious that you have to be totally dead to not see them. I'm done with them. I'm done with Otto Porter Jr. And I told you my feelings on Lauri. I'm done with him too. Too bad he's not an unrestricted free agent. He said he's a restricted free agent this summer. I'm done with both of them. I know Otto Porter Jr. is a free agent this summer, so his salary is going to come off the books. Lauri Markkanen, he's a great shooter, but to be fair, I know this will be coming off as an unfair point, but you have to question his toughness. And whenever he comes back, he keeps getting injured. And to a lesser extent, Wendell Carter Jr. too, even though he's playing out of position. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Lauri, he is a very good player when he's streaky. We saw that the last time, Lakeena. We talked about it a month ago when he came back from his other injury. But you cannot ruin the chemistry of this team right now by you keep being hurt and being inconsistent. More so of Otto Porter Jr. He's been on the milk carton ever since he's been here, okay? And Lauri, how long will he stay healthy? Do you trust him to stay healthy through the end of the season, whether they make the playoffs or not? Right now, it's a big old question mark. And to be real about it, I say no.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, it's a circle of Lauri, right? I mean, just when you give up on him, he pulls you back in. Just when you thought, he pulls you back in, then he disappoints you again. So, yeah, I've had an ex-boyfriend like that, unfortunately. That's why he's an ex. So that's another story for
more than another podcast.
You know what I'm saying? More than another pod. But I mean, I defended Lauri when he came out of Arizona. I said, look, this was a good pick. I think in the right system, the system that was in place, then maybe he could have improved, but he hasn't. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. And look, I mean, if this summer, I think if you want to try and perhaps maybe make sure he plays well so that maybe, maybe you can at least trade him, or maybe perhaps, if you do decide, because I don't think, Mark Eversley and AK, I don't think they're going to bring him back. I just don't see it happening. So, if you want to at least try to see, maybe get something for him, maybe you can. As for Otto, I mean, look, I think he's just a very expensive guy that once the season's over with, his salary will be off the books, and you can kind of just spend that to however you want to spend it. So that's sort of been my feeling about Lauri and Otto. But as far as the schedule is concerned, they would have played against Miami by the time this premieres on YouTube. So Alana Tekire, Matt Peck, you guys better be nice to each other. We better not, don't do anything. You'll be nice. Be civil on Twitter, guys. But
yeah, I'll have to follow those two after the Blackhawks because they play the night against the Florida Panthers and Coach Q's team. So I'll have to follow them after I watch the Hawks. Like you said, both of them had to play nice in the sandbox.
Yes, you do. Yes, they do.
Both of them friends of the show, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. We love them. And also, they play Toronto tomorrow, so that should help a little bit. We'll see how they are. Toronto's have had their various issues. So
yeah, bad loss against Atlanta on Thursday.
Yeah, that was just on a Tony Snell buzzer beater of all people. although he did do that for the Bulls a few years ago. Remember, Sid? So that's really that's not really surprising. But look, as far as this Bulls team is concerned, look, I didn't have any expectations. If they make it to the playoffs, they make it to the play-in, fine. If they don't, okay, then you can kind of evaluate these guys. Like I said, most of these guys are probably not going to be here next season. So let's just see what you got And besides Zach, who else? And probably Kobe too. Who, and P will, of course. So, he didn't had a good night a couple of nights ago, but I think sort of try to see if we can probably get a top free agent, maybe get a tier guy. Look, LaMarcus Aldridge, we'll talk about that in a minute. He's out there now, so that's sort of surprising. But you want to bring him back. I know he's 35, but he can still shoot. He can give you 14 and about 8 or 9 rebounds. So that's something that they need. He's a big guy that can actually shoot. Yes, he's a defensive liability, but he could be kind of like that another veteran leader that you can get. So we'll see.
Yeah, just taking a look at the box score from Thursday's loss to Philadelphia. The Sixers have pretty much a deep roster. I know most people will not give them credit for it, but it took a total team effort. Tobias Harris led the squad with 24 points. Tony Bradley chipped in with 14. Seth Curry, his little brother, contributed with 12 points. And Shane Milton had 10 points as well. So Philadelphia has a pretty balanced team. Will they make it to the finals? I'm not sure, but once Joel Embiid, who's a top 3 MVP candidate for this season, and Ben Simmons get back as soon as possible, that team is going to be a team to reckon with. I know people want to give the Eastern Conference title to Brooklyn, but not so fast. If Philadelphia is healthy come playoff time.
Yeah, Philly and Doc will have something to say about that when it comes to the East is concerned. What impressed you over these last couple of days that since the ABAs came back from their All-Star break?
The Los Angeles Clippers, they had a big win on Thursday night against the Golden State Warriors. As we mentioned before on the show, no controversy so far from the Clippers this year. Tyronn Lue is their new head coach. You haven't heard a peep out of him. It seems like they, so far from the outside looking in, they're keeping everything in-house. As of this recording, they are 25-14. Kawhi Leonard did his thing on Thursday, scoring 28 points. Paul George contributed with 20-plus points as well. Also on Thursday, which the game that most people did not pay attention to, the Phoenix Suns just keep on rolling. They defeated the Portland Trail Blazers 127-121. These two stars were the standouts. Devin Booker had a game-high 35 points, while Damian Lillard, a.k.a. Dame Dollar, as the kids will call him, scored a team-high 30 points for Portland. I think Portland still are going to be a factor, assuming they get LaMarcus Aldridge or perhaps get DeAndre Drummond. They need to get back healthy, first of all, with Nurkic and CJ McCollum. But if they could pick up LaMarcus Aldridge, I don't know if he wants to go back to Portland, but if they could pick up one of those guys, him or Drummond, they could really scare some teams. I'm not saying they're going to beat the Lakers or the Clippers. I think they can give Clippers trouble if they're healthy, more so than the Lakers if they pick up one of those guys. But pressure needs to be taken off Dame Lillard, because we all know that he's the leader of the team. He does everything for them. He just needs some help, especially in the middle.
Yeah, Kamara Anthony is 35, or 34, I should say. So you're not going to get too much contribution as much as he can from him. So he's basically doing it by himself. I mean, look, Gary Trent Jr. had 17, and Elis Kanter had 16, but they really didn't have too much after that. So as far as the Suns, I mean, Miles Bridges is sort of like the third guy. Mikal Bridges, I should say, is that third guy. After CP3 and of course Devin Booker. Aiden had 11 points. Jay Crowder had 13 off the bench, so they had a lot of bench. They had a lot of even campaign of all people. Horrible.
Yeah, I saw him last night. Thursday night, I should say.
He had 13. Yeah. So that's interesting. But look, Monty Williams, we raved about him. In our NBA midseason show, he has definitely worked wonders with that roster. So, congrats to him. And look, I mean, they could probably give either one of the LA teams, and perhaps even Utah. Should they face Utah somewhere down the line in the playoffs, give them a run for their money.
You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown, which is me, as we talk about the NBA as the best games and moments we saw from this past week as the second half of the season is now underway. Lakeena, let's go back to Thursday's action. It was the first game of the TNT doubleheader. It was the Brooklyn Nets, once again without Kevin Durant and that hamstring. They defeated the Boston Celtics at the Barclays Center 121-109. Kyrie Irving led all scorers with 40 points. Jason Tatum dropped 31 for the C's. Lakeena, like I said before, Brooklyn is a very good team, but they need everybody healthy, and they need to develop the chemistry among those three guys with Durant, Harden, and Irving. Boston, I still like them, but they're just too damn inconsistent for me. They are.
Yeah, and Kyrie loves playing his former teams, right? I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
scores like 35 to 40 average, against both, the Cavs and now, of course, the Celtics. I mean, there needs to be some consistency, like you said. Hopefully, when KD does come back, they can kind of work on their chemistry. And now you got Blake Griffin now in there, so I'm sure that's going to take a couple games for them to kind of work on that, that team chemistry. Look, they gave him 109 points. I don't think that's going to work in the playoffs. I mean, of course, yes, they'll score 130, 120, 140, but yet they'll probably give up maybe about 115 or 120. So they need to work on their defense. That's why you brought in Blake Griffin. So, I mean,
who did not play on Thursday?
No, he didn't. It'll probably be. I think the next game he'll probably play. But I mean, look, their defense hasn't been a problem. I'm sure. Look, Steve Nash knows this. I mean, Mike D'Antoni, who's his assistant. He's allergic to defense. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest. But they
yep.
look. But look, I mean, the Nets look really good, and sort of business as usual. Kyrie, again, like I said, loves playing his his former team, so it's fine. Probably the most impressive performance for me was the Bucks over the Knicks. I thought that game was going to be a lot closer. They beat the Knicks by 33. I mean, I did not see that coming. I mean, Giannis had 24. All five of their starters were in double figures. I mean, you led by Giannis, of course, with 24. And here I think this has got to be a season high for him. Brandon Flores, he had 21 off the Forbes. I should say had 21 off the bench. Easy.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. If you remember, Michigan State fans probably remember him. He's a fourth year out of Michigan. A guy that I haven't heard in years. I believe he played with Miles Bridges, if I'm not mistaken. So, that was definitely a career high for him. But look, a nice contribution for him. So the Bucks are saying, hey, you know what, we're still here too.
I treat them like I treat the Utah Jazz. You're a great regular season team. Show me some consistency. Show up in the big moments come playoff time. That's all I have to say about Milwaukee. Going back to Wednesday when the second half season kicked off, the Dallas Mavericks defeated the San Antonio Spurs 115-104. DeMar DeRozan led San Antonio with 30 points. Of course, as we mentioned a moment ago, LaMarcus Aldridge and the Spurs organization agreed to part ways. On the other side for the Dallas Mavericks, Kristaps Porzingis, is he finally going to stay healthy for an entire year, Lakeena? He added 28 points for them while grabbing 14 rebounds. I don't know that he's finally going to – hopefully, if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, he's finally going to live up to that second billing next to Luka Doncic. But if he keeps putting out numbers like that, Dallas is going to be a tough out come playoff time. Like a year ago, even though Luka Doncic was playing on one great ankle.
Yeah, and also too, I think the Rick Carlisle's job security is pretty much intact for now because because in the beginning of the season people were asking for his jobs, the way they struggle. But now let's see. I mean, look, let's see if Porzingis can stay healthy. We saw how much of a monster he is when he is healthy. So hopefully he can keep it keep himself healthy, because I think that's when the Mavs are really good, when both Luka and Porzingis. That's kind of like their dynamic duo for the Mavs. So hopefully, this will be a start of something, a pretty good second half / playoff run for the Mavs.
Yeah, let's see what happens there. They can stay healthy for the remainder of the season. Before we move on, let's take a look at the highlight games for this upcoming weekend for the NBA. Let's start off with Saturday's games, which is tonight if you're listening on Saturday, which I assume most of you are. The Pistons will take on the Brooklyn Nets. That's an NBA TV game at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We assume that Kevin Durant is still going to be out with a hamstring injury. Will this be the Nets' debut of Blake Griffin? We shall see. The Pistons, as we know, they're rebuilding again, and the Nets are trying to build on that 25-13 record. Also at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, the Bucks will travel to D.C. to face the Wizards. Let's see what Giannis Antetokounmpo does on the road against a struggling Wizards team. And then, of course, at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on NBA TV, the second game of that of the doubleheader for that network. It is the Dallas Mavericks traveling to Denver to take on the Nuggets.
Jokic versus Luka, or Jamal Murray
Yes.
versus Luka. That should be an interesting one tonight. I am looking forward to that one. Also to Indiana and Phoenix. That should be another 9 o'clock one. That should be an interesting game as well.
I saw the first matchup between those two teams early in the season. Yeah, Phoenix got the best of the Pacers. Now the Pacers are trying to hang on and get back into that playoff conversation to participate in that 7 to 10 spot tournament. They need to get it going here as they start off a road trip out west.
Yeah, they definitely have a tough road trip out west. So it doesn't get easy when it starts. They have to play Phoenix, so that should be interesting there. Going to Sunday, you got Utah and Golden State. That's an NBA TV game at 3 o'clock. Also San Antonio and Philly. That's the second of that afternoon doubleheader. Miami and Orlando. That's always fun when those two play. Also, Toronto and Chicago, we talked about that. It'll be interesting to see how Toronto looks. They had a tough loss against Atlanta a couple of days ago. That should be interesting. Also, the nightcap of the NBA slot, after they do their Selection Sunday stuff, it'll be the Clippers and New Orleans. You got Kawhi versus Zion. That should be a fun one in New Orleans.
Yes, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to that first game, Lakeena, as you mentioned, part of the NBA TV doubleheader. Utah at Golden State. Golden State, they're at 500 as we speak. Utah has been so-so on the road this year with a 12-7 record away from Salt Lake City. For Golden State, this is one of those games that you have to show up and win. Utah, they started off hot to begin the year, but they cooled off a little bit. So I want to see if Golden State can take advantage of them early with a hot start, because we all know that Steph Curry can get going, but I know James Wiseman, he was benched in the first half the other night against the Clippers. I know Steve Kerr said it was part of the learning process. I know you still have Kelly Oubre over there, and you still have Andrew Wiggins, who's having a nice year so far. So I want to see what Golden State does against the Utah Jazz, especially after being embarrassed in Los Angeles on national television on Thursday.
Should be very interesting in that matchup. Now off to the Monday matchups. Milwaukee versus Washington. That should be interesting there. You got Giannis versus Bradley Beal. That should be an interesting one there. And in Brooklyn, you got the Knicks in Brooklyn. I'm sure the Knicks are going to want to bounce back after being embarrassed by the Bucks.
But that game is on ESPN.
Yeah, so let's hope that they don't get embarrassed there. Los Angeles, hard to believe that this game is not going to be on nationally. You got the Clippers and the Dallas. I'll be watching that game via my laptop at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, same here.
Another one, you got Indiana and Denver. That's that's in the second game of that road trip Indiana has. Memphis and Phoenix. That should be another good one at 9 o'clock. Also, you got the Lakers and Golden State.
Yeah, those two 9 o'clock games I'm really looking forward to. The Grizzlies are still hanging around, Lakeena, around that 7th, 8th spot with the 7-16 record as we record this program. The Suns, as I mentioned, they keep on rolling. Not too many people are talking about them. Are there a team that could be in play for LaMarcus Aldridge or DeAndre Drummond? We shall see. And, of course, like you mentioned, the Lakers and Warriors to wrap up Monday night. The Lakers embarrassed the Warriors about almost 2 weeks ago. Let's see if they could do it again now on the road at the Chase Center.
Should be a lot of fun. You listen to Second City Sports Podcast along with Sydney Brown, who is he. I'm Lakeena McGee, who is she. And we're talking some hoops right here, right now, right here. And you know what? I know, I've had a laptop for a couple of days, so I'm just kind of getting back into the groove. But let's go to the college hardwood now, Sid. You got the conference tournaments going on, the bigger conferences, the Big 10, the Big 12, SEC, ACC. By the time, we start, a lot of the finals will be about to go underway. What has impressed you so far in the conference tournaments?
Going back to Tuesday's action, Gonzaga, they were very impressive, even though don't let the final score fool you, but they were impressive in their West Coast Conference title game against BYU. They defeated BYU 88-78. Jalen Suggs was one of the I believe, one of the most top underrated players in the country. He led Gonzaga with 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Gonzaga, I know they'll probably get the #1 overall seed, but it's not going to be an easy road for them. But I like the way this team is playing. But if they'll have to play the likes of Illinois or Michigan, maybe Kansas, they could face some trouble. But looking at them, the last couple of games of that West Coast Conference tournament, I really like the way they're playing right now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to I'm at show me mode when it comes to Gonzaga. Do it for me, do it for us in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of been like like I feel about Utah and Milwaukee in the regular season NBA. Here in college, I'm at Gonzaga. Look, show me, show me what you can do, especially the way it's set up this year. You're going to be kind of in a mini bubble. You're going to be in Indiana, and they may, you might have to play like at 9 or 10 in the morning your time. So that's going to be interesting how they set up that scheduling. But I have to say, so far, I mean, the potential bid stealers. I mean, Georgia Tech is now in the ACC final, playing the winner of North Carolina and Florida State, because of the fact that Virginia had a positive test, and they couldn't play in the semifinal, and now they're saying that they have to work through the protocols on the contact tracing. So you feel for them because they got the #1 seed, and now they couldn't play in the semifinal. Get feel for them, and it's happened in a few other places too. North Carolina A&T, who played in the MEAC, they were actually the 1 seed in their conference. Some people said that they might have a chance to pull off the upset depending on how their matchup is, but unfortunately they had a positive test in their program. They couldn't play in their conference tournament, and their season's pretty much over with. So you hope that nothing. I don't think it's gonna be a big outbreak, but you don't be surprised if we have some teams having to pull out for various reasons.
Yeah, as we talked about before the show, Lakeena, it's just hopefully that things don't get too crazy. We all know why the NCAA is doing this, because of money at the end of the day, and CBS Sports, along with Turner, they need that big paycheck, so that's why they're doing this. As I always say, everybody gets paid except for the college athletes, but we won't get too deep into that. That's for another podcast for another time. Also, the Duke Blue Devils, who are trying to make a run to win the ACC tournament, they had to pull out due to COVID issues as well. That program has suffered through a lot this year. I know that wasn't the greatest team on paper coming into the season, but along with that, combined with COVID issues, their season is done. I know the women's program shut their program down earlier when college basketball was starting in late November, early December for everybody else. So, like you said, hopefully this is just a minimal. I think there's going to be minor bumps in the road, but I'm not going to put panic into people. Oh, they shouldn't do this. Oh, is it going to be a disaster? We just don't know. But I think that we'll be okay. I don't think it's going to be as bad as people want to make it out to be.
Yeah, I think people might be, I don't know, they're freaking out, but I think people just kind of just slow down. But, it is what it is. I mean, congrats, I want to say congratulations to some teams, the Horizon League, our buddy, friend of the show, Jordan Burnfield. He called a lot of those games this year. #1 seed, Cleveland State, I think it's their second trip in like 4 years. So, Vikings are back in the tournament. Drexel, talk about a long drought. They haven't been in the tournament since like the late 90s. That's how long it's
taking back to my high school years.
Yeah, so congrats to them. They made it into Colonial, their first conference tournament title in that long span. So congrats to them. Mount St. Mary's, it's been a few years for them. They're back in the tournament representing the Northeast Conference. UNC Greensboro, they're back for, I think they were just there recently, but this is their first trip in a few years. Oral Roberts, I think they were a 4 or 5 seed in their tournament in the Summit. They're back for the first time since like the mid 07, I think. Appalachian State, their first trip since the early 2000s when they were in another conference. So, some programs are making their returns to the tournament.
Yeah, congratulations to those schools. I want to go back to the Big East tournament for a minute. Lakeena, I don't think there were fans in the stands because they're playing in Madison Square Garden. But following Georgetown's upset win on Thursday, 72-71 over Villanova, Patrick Ewing, I don't know if he was trying to be funny, but because everybody is doing interviews via Zoom, like we're doing our podcast via Zoom right now. You're listening and watching us. He said that he brought us up concerns that the Madison Square Garden security didn't know who he was. He had to give him his ID. I know he went on a little 2-minute rant saying I'm a former Knick. Do you see my jerseys in the Raptors? And of course, you had Spike Lee yelling and screaming. I love Spike Lee. He's a great director. I know he's a super fan of the Knicks. You got just about everybody making comments on it. I think that Ewan's trying to be funny and serious at the same time, but it's like, do you guys know who the hell I am?
Yeah,
I'm Patrick Ewing. I'm 7'1". I'm a pro basketball Hall of Famer. Do you know who I am? Do you know who you messing with?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell. He kind of said with sort of a slight smile, but then you kind of feel, okay, maybe he was a little bit serious. But it is a little weird that I'm sure the security guards know who he is. I mean, he grew up in the area. He grew up in Jamaica, Queens. So it's not like, it's not like you don't know who Patrick Ewing is. I mean, his jersey's up there on the Raptors there. So I don't know. I don't know if James Dolan needs to, work on the security there. Maybe it's a security thing. Who knows? But but even though, nonetheless, a nice win for Patrick Ewing being the number 1 seed, Villanova in the Big East tournament. So good for them. Hopefully they can advance into the finals, which will be tonight.
Yeah, it'll be a great start for them in that program. Lakeena, I want to go back to the Big Ten. I know Illinois, I'm sure they'll be getting ready to play their semifinal game, which is later today on CBS for you guys to listen to us on the Saturday, of course. I know some people say they don't need this tournament to get ready for March Madness because they'll get one of those 4 number 1 seeds. Even though, of course, we all know that they're in the tournament, they still need these couple of games to tune up. And we talked about this on our last episode, Lakeena. Io DeSuma, who came back last week, he looked really good at Ohio State. And I know he has 1 game under his belt, 2 games under his belt now with this recording. The Illini need to still straighten a couple minor things out. I'm not saying they're a bad team. I'm not going to overreact or things to that nature, but I cannot wait to see them play Michigan again, assuming that this happens in the Big Ten tournament. I'm not going to say that Illinois is going to lay down. I don't think head coach Brad Underwood is going to do that. This team is playing very well right now, and they can see the forest from the trees. So I'm looking forward to watching Illinois today and perhaps tomorrow compete for the Big Ten tournament title.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because I don't think that, look, you need it, if nothing else, you need it for momentum. You want to have momentum going into the tournament. I mean, you're going to be playing close to home. You might be able to get some of your fans there, perhaps at the very least, your family and friends, because I think that's how they're limiting it. But, but I mean, look, Io DeSuma, has played great. I mean, but look, I understand what the Illinois AD Josh Women said that, look, maybe there should have been co-champs and blah blah blah. But look, what you're seeing this series with Michigan, you've won each other's home floor. You could probably say that the win you guys had in Ann Arbor a couple of weeks back was more impressive because you did it without your top player. Okay, fine. Especially the same way, he was also saying that maybe AO should have been Big Ten Player of the Year. I mean, but I get it. But look, unless, Luka Garza was either, hurt or wasn't very productive, neither was the case. He was probably going to get Big Ten Player of the Year. So, he's deserving of that. And he also deserved to have his jersey retire, which they surprised him on his senior night last week, which was a very nice sentiment there. So, look, if we get a Michigan, Illinois, I think that'll make CBS happy. The Big Ten title game. I mean, look, Ohio State may have something to say about it. Wisconsin, they had a nice one a couple of nights ago. They might have something, and maybe Rutgers may have something to say about it too. So, look, weird things have happened in the Big Ten tournament the last few years. So, but Michigan has won, I think, like 3 of the last 5. So they may not be ready to relinquish that title just yet.
Before we move on to another conference, Lakeena, wrapping up the Big Ten, let's throw some roses, no pun intended, to the Northwestern. Their season ended with a 5-point loss against the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Yeah, I mean, look, next year, a lot of people are saying that next year because he has a lot of, Chris Collins has a lot of top recruits coming. So, we'll see. And, a lot of those guys, who were, big part of, what happened, had that nice little early start where they were like 3-0 or 3-1 in the Big Ten earlier in the year. They kind of went down, pretty quick. But everyone's saying that next year is probably going to be a year for Northwestern. We'll see. I mean, like the teams we mentioned may have something to say about it, but, look, I mean, there's always next year, I guess, if you're Northwestern.
Yeah, that's what we always say as Chicago sports fans, and we'll see what happens. Anything else impressed you, Lakeena, throughout these conference tournaments, Pac-12, Big 12?
I mean, I'm looking forward to see what the Pac-12, endures, because Oregon is the number 1 seed, and hopefully then USC will be on a collision course to play later today. Also on CBS or ESPN, I believe. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but but look out for Oregon State. Oregon State might be a potential bid stealer. That's another big stealer. They beat UCLA, so maybe knocking them out the tournament. The ACC, I want to see if Georgia Tech, if they, later tonight, if they can be a potential bid stealer for somebody. Of course, walking over with Duke. Alabama's probably going to want to, win the SEC tournament for the first time in a long time. Especially with Kentucky being out. This will actually be the first time, Sid, assuming that we know Duke wasn't going to go unless, they won the ACC tournament. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. This will be the first time, I think, since 1976. That was the last time neither Duke nor Kentucky made the NCAA tournament. And
yes, you are correct.
And that Kentucky, this is actually their first losing season. Well, actually, this is, their first losing season, I think, since the 80s. But also, too, for Coach Cal, I know you're not a big fan of his, but it was actually his first losing season, I should say, since his first year at UMass back in 88 and 89. So, the season is just very weird, and everything else, But look, I mean, good luck to all the rest of the conference tournaments, games, and any potential bid stealers, and hopefully we'll have a lot to talk about during our. We'll wait on that announcement afterwards, but it should be fun.
Yeah, speaking of announcers and announcements, real quick before we take our time out, here are the 10 sets of broadcasters for CBS and Turner as we get set for March Madness, which will take place in the state of Indiana next Thursday. Here are the announcing teams. The number 1 team will be Jim Nance, Bill Raftery, Grant Hill, and Tracy Wolfson. Brian Anderson, Jim Jackson, Elliot LaForce will lead the second team. Iron Eagle, Jim Spinargle, and Jamie Erdahl will lead the third team, followed by Kevin Harlan, Dan Bonner, Dana Jacobson, Carter Blackburn, and Demi Antonelli. Lisa Bington and Steve Smith will follow. Andrew Catalan, Steve Lapis, and A.J. Ross. Our good friend Spiro Ditas will be teamed up with Brendan Hayward this year, and sideline reporter from MLB Network, Lauren Shahadi.
Love her.
Yep, me too. Tom McCarthy and Avery Johnson will round out the second to last crew. And Brad Nessler, Steve Ladden, and Evan Washburn. So those will be your announcing teams for the 2021 March Madness tournament for CBS and Turner.
Love Lisa Byington. She's done great work for the Big Ten Network, so it's great to see her. She's going to be the first woman to do play-by-play for the men's tourney, so very excited. And also, people are wondering why no Chris Webber or Reggie Miller, but because they're going to be busy doing NBA, especially since they're going to be in a bubble in Indiana. They want to kind of limit that, so that's why you're bringing guys like Brendan Haywood and guys like that. So.
And also, too, Wally Zerbiak, who does work for MSG for the Knicks, and he's also with CBS Sports. He'll be in the studio this year along with Seth Davis and Clark Kellogg and host Greg Gumbel.
Yeah, so that's why they're limiting some of the NBA guys, since they're going to be doing, they're going to be NBA games going on too. So that's why they're limiting on what that is. And I'm happy for Jim Jackson too. He's, definitely, he's a great play-by-play guy. Of course, Big Ten Player of the Year back in '93, was close to, going to the Final Four with Ohio State. But of course, Juwan Howard and the rest of the Fab Five, put a brakes on that. So, but yeah, so I think this is a great team of announcers. They have a nice depth of announcers there, of course, the CBS and Turner. So it should be fun. It's going to be interesting to see how they set it up, Sid, because of the fact that you're going to have 2 games in one court and 2 games on the other side of the court, and it's going to be interesting to see how they spread out the schedule. It's going to be it's going to be a little weird, but look, it's what you got to do when you're trying to do a tournament during a pandemic.
Yeah, especially without having one last year, it's great just to have one this year. Like we said before, we're not back to fully normal yet, but this is a start, and March Madness is a part of that. So just for those aspects alone, Lakeena, we'll see how the coverage will be handled by CBS and Turner. Let's take a quick 20-second timeout as you're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown, which is me. On the other side, we'll have friend of the show, Miss Kaitlin Sharkey from Fox 32 Chicago Sports. She'll hop on with us to talk Bears and other fun stuff. And we'll talk about a new TV contract with the NHL. Has strong thoughts about that. And we'll have a whole lot more. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports. All right. Lakeena, I am ready.
All right, so welcome back to Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Cindy Brown, who is he? I'm Lakeena McGee, who is me and a she. You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Cindy Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
And you can follow the show on at wearerealradio.com at War Media. You can listen to all of our great shows with our buddy Josh Hicks, our top guy Kyle Means. Just so many great shows on the War Media family. You can follow on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the podcast platforms, Anchor, Google, iTunes, and also iHeartRadio. We're also on the YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we are unapologetically fun. And also, we're going to have fun with our next guest. She's the friend of the show. She hails from the state of Wisconsin. Now she's a Chicagoan, covering Chicago sports for Fox 32 Chicago Sports. She is the one and only Miss Kaitlin Sharkey. Kaitlin, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Thank you. I'm excited to be back on with you guys. Like I said, I missed you, and I'm glad that we have sports to talk about because last time we talked to you both, we didn't know what the sports scene was going to be like the last year. So I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, we're happy to have you back. Let's start off with the Chicago Bears. Lakeena, 1, 2, 3. Musa.
Oh my God. Because you know what though, the Russell Wilson stuff is coming, and it's kind of just been accelerating the last week. Kaitlin, people are following him on Twitter and Bible scriptures. We know he's a very religious guy, and now there's a report saying that the Bears are going to offer the Seahawks such a great offer that they will not refuse. So what are the chances? Is there any chance that the Bears can get Russell Wilson?
I think there's always a chance. I've some things seem more far-fetched than others, but I've also seen the NFL kind of do some wild things the last couple of years. So I'm never really surprised at how things play out. I mean, I never would have guessed Tom Brady would have been signing an extension in Tampa, like a couple of years ago. So I think the NFL has just become this business where players want out, players want to go where they want to go. And if Russell Wilson wants to come to Chicago, there's obviously talks that he wants to. I would be surprised if he did really end up here because the Bears, that report says they want to make this offer they can't refuse. But then you're thinking to yourself, what can they offer for future Hall of Fame quarterback? If they just package together a bunch of guys in every draft pick they have and throw it out to Seattle, maybe. But I mean, I think it would be exciting. I think it would be awesome. And if I'm surprised that Russell wants to leave Seattle. He's such a face. He's such a, he's done so much for that team and that franchise. So that part is shocking to me. And if he wanted to leave that organization because of a down year and he didn't have enough weapons to work with, I don't know why he'd want to come then to Chicago. Because it seems like they're kind of in this influx right now with a lot of things. Obviously, it would be great for the Bears. It would be great for the city of Chicago. I think he'd like being here in the city, so to speak. But I say there's always a chance. So it would be an exciting move. It'd probably be one of the bigger moves. I think it's Russell and Deshaun, kind of figuring out where they go will be the biggest news of the offseason this year.
Yeah, speaking of Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, Kaitlin, of course, we all know in the NBA going to basketball, which is a second, we know about what LeBron James has done. He's brought the player empowerment movement to that league, and we've seen what's been happening over the last decade or so. Going back to the NFL, do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea? Because you can see arguments on both sides because, as we all know, the contracts in the NFL, unless you're Kirk Cousins, are 30% guaranteed. So do you think this is a good thing for the NFL or a bad thing for the NFL for players to now voice their opinions and force their way out of bad situations?
Well, I think you hit on it, Sydney. The fact that it has pros and cons, and I can see both sides of it, because I also look at these players, they're risking their bodies. Their whole life is football, right? So they want to be somewhere where they're happy, where it's good for their family, where they feel like their talents are being utilized the most. At the same time, you don't want the super teams being formed. The NBA can do that a lot easier. The NFL, I don't think will ever get to that point, so to speak, where it's like everyone's jumping ship to join whatever team. I don't think we'll ever really see that to the super team extent. But I mean, it's interesting because now it just creates this, if a player wants out, he'll find a way out. And social media has been used in such a powerful way for these players. I mean, we see it all the time now, you know, the cryptic tweets that we're all trying to understand, the pictures, the posts. I feel like every day I'm like, does this mean anything? Or is they just posting something? You know, it's one of those games that we're playing. And I don't know. I go back and forth with it. Part of me wants to see, like, if you sign a contract and you sign a commitment, you're committed to that, right? It's not always going to be roses. You're not always going to play for the best team. And, I mean, we kind of all deal with that in our own lives. So it's one of those things where you're like, you made a commitment. It goes back to, like, my T-ball days when my mom would be like, you signed up. Now you're finishing the season even though you guys are terrible. You know, it's like character development. But money talks at the end of the day, and winning talks, and it's a business, and these players are more than just quarterbacks. They're more than just receivers. They're, you know, helping franchises. They turn franchises around. So I think we're going to see more of this, so to speak, but not to the extent where we're going to get these power super teams in the next couple of years.
I totally agree with you on that, Kaitlin. Allen Robinson got the franchise tag. We all knew that was going to happen. Carlos Santos got a basically a year extension, you know, and deservedly so. He's been very, you know, efficient, you know, the last couple of years for the Bears. But there's also rumors that maybe they may have to release, you know, somebody like Akeem Hicks or somebody like that because they're way above the cap. So would anybody surprise you if they do have to cut somebody of significance?
It wouldn't surprise me at all because I feel like the Bears are so backed in a corner with the moves that they've made that they have to – I mean, the franchise tag, like on Robinson, we knew it was going to come, but it also could be a tag and trade. I would not be surprised if they try to package Allen Robinson together in a nice little bow and say, here, you can take that to try to get someone bigger. I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like no one is off limits as far as cuts for the Bears. It was good to see Carlos Santos get the extension that he deserved because they finally have someone. He was probably the most consistent player on that team. Let's not kid ourselves. So that was like the best move that I've seen. But I feel like they've really backed themselves in a corner, and I don't know how they're going to figure out this season because if the Russell Wilson part doesn't work out, you are in a major problem with quarterback. And it just limits so much of what you can do and what you can sign and how you allure free agents. Because if I'm a receiver free agent, you're coming to a team and you don't even know what the quarterback situation is going to be. And that's not something you want. And Allen, I mean, I don't see that there's any chance that Allen's still here unless they do sign him that extension. But I feel like what we've heard is the talks are not trending in that direction. So I would not be surprised by anything. I feel like they say everything's on the table, and it has to be because they've created this situation for themselves. They have to have everything on the table.
Kaitlin Sharkey, Fox 32 Chicago sports anchor and reporter, is joining us here on the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee, who is she. I am Sydney Brown, which is me. Kaitlin, sticking with that Bears quarterback situation for a moment, assuming that the Russell Wilson situation doesn't work out, which will probably end up happening that way. I know some Bears fans will get mad at me for saying that, but we're truthful on this show. Who do you think are the realistic, better options for the Bears? Me and Lakeena have been talking about this for weeks. We threw out names like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Me personally, I think Derek Carr could work here, but John Gruden, the head coach of the Raiders, has a love-hate relationship. Right now, we don't hear any news out of Raiders camp. We threw out Alex Smith, but let's be honest, he'll probably end up retiring. So like you mentioned, the Bears are very limited as far as realistically as their options at quarterback. Do you think that it's possible that they could bring Mitch back?
I mean, I feel like if all the pieces fall and they're in a situation where it comes down to Fitzpatrick, Derek Carr, or Mitch Trubisky, and they can't get their hand, like, they have to, right? Because at the
You
end
would
of the
think.
day, yeah, like you're thinking to yourself, you're like, I always go through the list of quarterbacks and I'm like, is Mitch Trubisky going to be worse than Derek Carr? Maybe, maybe not. But is Derek Carr going to come in and just be the answer to all the problems for the offense? I think not either. So it's such a weird dynamic, I think. And the fact that it's only Foles, and now I think too, a lot of the problems with the Bears offense, and talking to some of the people around the team and the offense specifically, said this past camp was this whole quarterback competition, right? That's what everyone focused on. That's what the coaches focused on, the personnel, the plays, all the practice schedules were focused on this competition. It didn't really give a lot of chance for the offense to actually work on what they needed to do and play in schemes and plays and get those reps in, because they were switching out quarterbacks every other rep from camp literally to the regular season, as we all saw it play out. So I think if they have if they have a quarterback and they can develop consistency and really work on what the offense needs to work on as a whole, they might be better off, because it's hard to tell if Foles was just set up for failure. Mitch was set up for failure because they embarked on this quarterback competition in a weird year and a hard year with a lot of changes. So I think that was the biggest issue. So as far as quarterbacks, I don't think anyone is going to come in and save the day unless it's Russell Wilson.
All right, let's go to a team that's a little bit better, but unfortunately a couple of nights ago that we showed them maybe they're back into reality. Those are Bulls. Do you think that the Bulls make any significant, trades, before the deadline? And do you think they have a chance to at least make it to the play-in?
I hope so. I think the Bulls have maybe exceeded expectations a little bit. Everyone was kind of down on them, and it's tough because so much of it is put on how did Zach LaVine do that night. Like you go to the box score of the Bulls, and if they won or lost, you're looking, well, how many points did LaVine have? If LaVine goes off, they have a good chance of winning, which seems like common sense, but it's become more of if that team doesn't learn how to play defense as well as it needs to, that's going to be the issue. LaVine can't get 30, 40 a night. He has, but he can't consistently do that. Like last night was a perfect example. Where that's going to be an issue. I don't really know if they're going to be sellers. What they kind of have, it's kind of like a similar situation to the Bears. What do they have to offer to get a big free agent? I'm not sure. I think they should try and do whatever they can. I think they have a great coach. I think they're certainly stepping in the right direction, which is promising, right? And sometimes that's the hardest part. You get a good coach like Doc Rivers and Philly, and now Joel Embiid is feeling like he can be an MVP. So I think it's all about fit and culture, and I think Billy Donovan has done a great job. I think they've bought into what they're trying to do there. They're just going through the growing pains right now, and it's all on LaVine's shoulders, and that's a lot to ask.
Speaking of growing pains, not the old school TV show, but sticking with the Bulls and Kobe White. Of course, he's the second-year player out of North Carolina. I know in the beginning of the season, of course, now along with new head coach Billy Donovan, you have Hall of Fame head coach Maurice Cheeks, who's from Chicago, and people thought that Kobe White's game will be going up to another level. I've been saying to people, whoever that's listening, that Kobe White is a scorer. He's not going to lead the league in assists. He's not John Stockton, okay? But I believe he's a scorer, but he can still make plays when need be. Give us your assessment of Mr. White in year 2 in a Bulls uniform.
I think he's learning some valuable lessons this year. Like you said, he's a scorer. He's going to go out there and try to get his points. But I also think he's understanding that it takes a lot more than that to win, and in winning close games. And I think that part is still part of the growth, still part of the development as a player. And I mean, even we saw a couple of weeks ago when he was benched in the second half because the coach didn't like his energy. And I think that's a hard realization, and that's a growing curve for players in their second year, especially if they have this confidence, they can go out, they can score like Kobe White can. but there's other things they need to learn how to do consistently. And it's all energy and attitude. And I think he learned his lesson by being benched. You know, that's something no player ever wants to do. But I think the more he plays, the older he gets, he'll learn how to make the plays in the right moments or see the floor and like, that's not your shot. Yes, you can maybe make that shot, but is there a better shot for a teammate that you need to pass it off to, you know, kind of seeing the floor more openly. But I think he's done a great job, and it's been a lot of change and a lot of adversity for him in 2 seasons already. Yeah. So I think he's done what he can, and I look forward to seeing the growth from a lot of those guys on that team because they have great vets that can come off the bench and do some good things for them when they need it. But it's going to be nice to see how these young guys kind of grow into their own and learn what it takes. And yes, you may have the shot that you want, but is there a better one available on the court right now? And I think that's something the Bulls got to figure out.
What about Lauri? You think Lauri is another polarizing figure among Bulls fans? Do you think he can, you know, improve? I know, right? You know, do you think he can improve and perhaps, you know, is he gonna be like a piece so they can build on?
I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth on it. It's hard because then he got injured again. So it's like he's taken out. So his body of work is always getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's like, okay, is he or isn't he? And I'm not going to pretend that I'm a basketball scout and can look at him and know what he's capable of because I'm not sure. I think he should show a little bit more at this point. I would say, like, if you're watching, you're like, okay, this is what, can we actually build around this? I think it has the potential, but I wouldn't wait too long. You know what I mean? If you're looking at this team as a whole, how long are you really waiting for Markkanen to kind of pop off and be this superstar that they expect him to be?
Let's go to baseball, Kaitlin. Of course, there are high expectations on one side of town. On the other side of town, there's cause for concern. As nice as I'll put it, I'm referring to the Chicago Cubs, and of course, the White Sox on the south side. Putting my bias out of the way, Kaitlin, of course, I'm a White Sox fan, but it's just in a professional way. What chances do you give the White Sox to be a World Series contender in 2021?
I think they have a great chance, and it's exciting. My bias is completely removed because I'm from Wisconsin, so it's so funny to see like the tide change and everyone be so excited for the White Sox, and it's kind of fun to watch the dynamic of the fan bases. You know, even people I know in Chicago that are so pumped for the White Sox. I think they have the greatest pieces. They have great potential. They have all the things they need to do. I was nervous when they hired La Russa because I'm thinking to myself, the Sox are a very young, swaggy, cool team, like new baseball. You think of guys like Tim Anderson and how he's going to mesh with Tony La Russa when they first made that hire. And I'm like, I just don't see this playing out. But now that you listen to Tim Anderson in camp and some of the other guys, they're buying in. And at the end of the day, Tony La Russa knows how to win. So whatever your personal feelings are about him, and if he's, you know, been around too long or this and that, I think they've figured out a way that they know they have the pieces, they have the talent, they have the bats, they have the pitching. Well, why not bring in a manager who has a proven track record of success? So I think they should be high, and I'm excited to watch. They were fun to watch last year in a shortened season. So I'm really excited to watch the Sox because they're fun. And I mean, that's the most exciting part of baseball, is that game that, you know, it's laid back, and obviously it's competitive, but it should be more laid back and fun because they're going to play a full season. So they're going to need that same attitude this season if they want to make a long, sustainable run.
What about the north side? They brought back Jake Arrieta. They got Jock Peterson, who's been hitting the ball like crazy out in Arizona right now. What do you think about the Cubs' chances? Can at least make it, you know, interesting in their division?
Yeah, I think the Cubs can always have a chance. Their pitching obviously is a scary situation if you're a fan, because yes, Jake Arrieta is great, and I don't think that he's lost it by any means. I don't think he's a 2015 Cy Young winner like he was then. I don't think he's that same guy now, but he's certainly not lost anything. I love the Jock Peterson move. Hopefully he keeps smashing them out of the ballpark when the season begins. But outside of that, they're going to need to rely on, you know, maybe some of their young guys in this rotation can really make a name for themselves. Maybe, you know, all it takes is one good arm to like kind of emerge unexpectedly. And all of a sudden now you're talking about a team in the division, and can they make a push? So It'll be interesting to see what they do with some of their free agents moving forward, but I'm excited to watch, and I don't think it's going to be what Cubs fans are used to, but I also don't think it's going to be a disaster, so to speak. So, and the division's tough, and I don't really know how the Brewers are going to stack up against the Cubs and things like that. So that'll be, if they're having a down year, all of a sudden the Cubs are, right in it. So it's just this back and forth. Yeah, the NL Central is always like, okay, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? And even when they're not having stellar years, I feel like these teams in that division can kind of make a push. So I wouldn't write off the Cubs completely, but no, do I expect them to be in World Series talks? No, not at all.
Okay. Heading down the home stretch with friend of the show, Miss Kaitlin Sharkey from Fox 32 Chicago Sports, right here on the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Kaitlin, going back to football, of course, you just wrapped up your first year covering the Chicago Bears for Fox 32. Besides the players and the coaches, only the network reporters and the few cameramen from NFL Films were actually allowed on the field last year. Hopefully, I think things will change as far as 2021 with more vaccinations coming, people get vaccinated. Talk to us about your first experience covering the Chicago Bears, especially under those difficult circumstances last year.
Yeah, it was super bizarre, obviously, for everyone. I enjoyed being at the game, even if we didn't have locker room access, and I was interviewing, like, I literally in our post-game show, I'd sit in the empty stands, which was bizarre. And
yeah.
I'd have my laptop, and I would be like doing my post-game one-on-one via Zoom. So that part was all bizarre, but it was nice to be at the game and actually see and feel like I was actually going to cover an event. So I was grateful for that, but it was so bizarre. I mean, second half of the game, I would just sit in the stands to get ready for the post-game show. No one was around.
Oh, gosh.
Beer.
So weird. Echoes.
Yeah, it just gives you like this scrimmage feel. And like the sidelines are loud, obviously, where the players and coaches are, but like there's no momentum. And I think that was a big part of, and so like when some of those games when the Bears were losing it late, you're like, oh no, because like there's no energy in the stand to kind of boost them up or change the tide. But I am done with Zoom. I hope we are like at least get some kind of access to like one player a game, because I feel like my one-on-ones, I spend the first 5 minutes like, hey, can you hear me? David, hello? And it's like, you're just like so frustrated. And then by the time the technical stuff waves out, you're like, I forgot what the heck I was going to ask this guy. Like you literally lose your
crazy.
Yeah, you lose your whole train of thought. So it was an interesting season. I missed, just getting to know the players and even the beat reporters. And there's not, because you go to the press box, you stay in your assigned seats, everyone has their masks on. You're not really interacting because that's like not what we did the last year. Mm-hmm. So it was a very bizarre season. I'm glad it happened. I would have been obviously way more upset if there was no football. But I'm excited and I'm hopeful, as you guys talked about, with the vaccinations and everything else moving in the right direction. I don't think we're out of it by any means right now, but it's nice to know that we're headed in the right direction.
Fingers crossed. So,
yes.
All right. So, NCAAB tournament, we were talking about it, right before we started recording. Kansas is now, they have to leave the Big 12 tournament because one of their guys tested positive. Hope that that doesn't sort of spiral out of control. Like, we've mentioned, earlier. Do you think Illinois has a chance to perhaps, get all the way to the championship game? And also, and if not, who? And do you think we'll be able to kind of avoid all of this where teams have to leave, because of a positive COVID test?
This will be the hardest bracket I think any of us fill out, because it will not be like a bracket busting 16-1 seed. It'll be like, well, they got COVID and now the teams, you know what I mean? So it is such a wild card this March. I think Illinois certainly has the talent, the focus. They're in it. They're going to be one of those teams if they stay healthy. If they're not affected by any of that stuff, that they can definitely make a long push. As far as everyone else, it's like the minute I feel like, oh, they have a chance, I'm like, I don't know. It's been one of those games. Even when Illinois blew out Michigan, I was starting to think, I don't know what's going to happen this college basketball season, because it's just been so different. And I mean, I talked to Loyola yesterday, Lucas Williamson with Loyola, and it just, I think a lot of these players are just grateful that the tournament is here and that they have an opportunity, because a year ago, we know it was all taken away from some of those guys, and you're in your senior year. So I know, when they go out there, they're going to play their hearts out. They're not going to take any of it for granted. So I also think that creates a different dynamic, because we know college basketball players, all it takes is one kid to get hot at the right time in a big moment, and it'll be sailing to success. So I'm hoping both Illinois teams can make a serious run.
Let's wrap up this interview, Kaitlin, with a couple of fun questions for you. I know that you're ready. You always prepared to take whatever is given to you. Okay. And I know that this time it won't be different. Which of these reality TV shows would you like to be a part of? I'll give you 5 choices.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
The Bachelorette, Big Brother, Married at First Sight, The Amazing Race, or Survivor?
Oh, man. Well, Married at First Sight's the first to go. Absolutely not. I would say The Amazing Race. I think that would just be fun and different, and nothing with the Bachelor, Bachelorette, or anything affecting my love life. No, I would rather just
Smart
make
girl,
a run at a good prize. Yeah.
Smart girl. Love it. Smartly, I should say. Love it.
And did you have any, without telling the year that you were born, did you get a chance to watch any Saturday morning TV shows or cartoons growing up?
I did.
What were some of your favorites?
Oh, man. I mean, I always loved, it was like reruns of Tom and Jerry when I was watching them, but I honestly loved the Muppets. I think they were underrated, but
Lakeena.
Thank you.
I watch the Muppets every Christmas. I love the Muppets. I think they're hilarious. I still do. SpongeBob. I watch a lot of SpongeBob. Doug. A lot of Nickelodeon in its heyday, I feel like was really good. So any of those, but yeah, I'm Muppets fan for a long time. So I'm hoping nothing happens with the Muppets, that they just stay to come.
Oh, thank goodness. Oh my goodness. I love it.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Lakeena.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say before we close out, Kaitlin, we had a topic a couple of weeks ago. And I started watching, of course, NBC transition to the teen comedy shows to the mid to the late 90s with California Dreams and Saved by the Bell, The New Class, and City Guys, and One World. I don't know if you remember any of those shows, but I started watching those via YouTube for the last couple of weekends. I just had this great nostalgia, taking it back to my high school and early college years. So you and Lakeena are now besties with the Muppet Babies.
Yes, we are.
Yes, absolutely. And the other day I was on Netflix, and it was like the 90s section or whatever, and it was like Sister and Wonder Years.
Yes.
I'm like, man, I loved all of these shows. Saved by the Bell, I loved all of these shows. So I was like, okay, I need to walk down nostalgia, just to kind of get that feeling. And I think we could all use a little nostalgia right now to remember simpler times. So I'm grateful that those shows, I don't know if I'll watch any of the reboots, because I'm like, I'm not someone for sequels as it is, especially with TV shows. So, but it's fun that they can bring those shows back, because, I used to watch so much Sister, like it was in Smart Guy and all of those kind of shows. So I'm excited to see that they keep putting these out for Netflix for our generations.
Yes, these young kids need to learn what great television shows were like, especially back in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah. Today's kids will never know, Kaitlin. They will never know how good we had it.
No, it was just nice and simple, and like it was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was just easy, and easy watching, easy viewing, and just fun, good shows.
All right. See, as usual, we put a guest on our Smiles Faces. And once again, we did today with our good friend, Miss Kaitlin Sharkey of Fox 32 Chicago Sports. She is the host, anchor, and reporter. You can follow her on social media at K-Rose Sharkey. Once again, at K-Rose Sharkey. That's the letter K in the Rose Sharkey. Kaitlin, thank you so much for coming back on our program today. Great job. Keep up the great work, and let's do this again down the road, okay?
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to talking to you guys. You always do a great job. You always make me laugh, and it's fun you need a little bit of both of that when you're doing sports talk, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yes, we don't take ourselves so seriously.
No, we don't.
This is what it's all about.
We're on
If you're not talking about Russell Wilson and the Muppets in the same show, I don't want a part of it. So, you know?
There it is.
We're unapologetically fun for a reason, Kaitlin. Remember that.
Exactly.
Remember that.
Well,
So,
thank
Kaitlin,
you guys for having me.
thank you so much. You stay safe, sweetie.
All right, you guys too. Talk to you later.
All right, take care.
All right.
Once again, that's Kaitlin Sharkey of Fox TV, Chicago Sports Channel 32. For those of you that still have rabbit ears, she's a great friend of the show. That's why we like having her. She brings the knowledge, and she has a whole lot of fun along the way. So that's why we do what we do, Lakeena, and we're not going to apologize for it.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the NHL.
Yes.
And they're going back to ESPN as of next season.
I wish I had that music, the NHL music that the ESPN.
Now, this is one of the few times I wish we were back in studio.
I know, right? That would have been so much fun. But the way it sounds like it's going to be like a lot of the streaming. Their ESPN Plus, a lot of the games going to be on their streaming services. Yes, the Stanley Cup final will be on the big ABC. That's sort of like the big condition for 4 of those 7 years. Assuming NBC looks like they're going to get the other half of that package. So, but the out-of-market games, that's the one thing I'm concerned about, Sid, is the out-of-market games. That's what I'm worried about because, well, in-market games, I should say, because, Blackhawks fans, growing up, we had a hard time trying to find those games. We couldn't find the home games. We didn't have the home games.
Yeah, you had to watch the 10 o'clock news to watch the highlights.
Yeah.
Remember, there was no internet back then, no social media, so you had to watch the local news.
Yeah, so, and then, my God, I mean, and now it looks like that's going to be the case here. So I know you had something to say about it, Sid. Well, what was it?
I just wanted to say that it's good that ESPN is back. But like you said, Lakeena, we talked about this the last couple of shows about how we view and stream everything, how we listen to music, how we listen to podcasts like what we do, how we watch sports in general. Options are here, and it's not going anywhere. The one or two ways that we used to consume everything, Lakeena, as we talked about before, those days are gone. So we just had to get used to it for better or for worse. And going back to the ESPN package in terms of ESPN Plus, and I believe Hulu will be part of it as well. A lot of those are out-of-market games. The NHL TV app is now history. So everything had to be consumed through ESPN Plus, which I know is $10 cheaper because you get other programming from ESPN besides hockey. I just hope that ESPN will give it more attention, especially on their shows like Sports Center. Remember, they did it before the 2005 lockout, and this was after the Jordan era of the Bulls. So, and I remember watching those Sports Centers because, and especially during my college years, they had, because it was the Kobe and Shaq era back then, because most of their games were late unless they were playing on the East Coast. But definitely during the playoffs, the Lakers were playing late, and those games that were on ESPN too, I'm talking about the playoff games, they would lead off Sports Center with those games and then talk about the NBA later. So hopefully the NHL will give the NHL the respect that it deserves. But I know things are a whole lot different now because back when they hopped on ESPN back in '92, you didn't have these league channels like NBA TV, NHL Network like you do now. So there's competition there, but still, hopefully ESPN would give the NHL their due respect, not just advertise them whenever a day of a game is on.
It's going to be interesting, right? I mean, do you want to hear, Stephen A. and Max, talk about the NHL when I'm going to assume Stephen A. rarely watches the NHL? Do you want to, on Get Up, I'm sure you're going to be seeing, Barry Melrose and, Emily Kaplan and folks like that, on those shows. We'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Who's going to be the voice of it? Will Steve Levy, who did it for years, will they bring Gary Thorne back? That's going to be sort of the thing that's, I'm happy for those guys. I'm happy for, Linda Cohn and John Butcher Gross and, folks like that who are big NHL people. We know that they cover the sport for years when ESPN, first had it. And, they kind of, they kept promoting the sport, which is great. So will you see some of the other, Keyshawn, Jay, Will, and Zubin, will their morning show, will they start talking about hockey more? So it's going to be very interesting to see how this sort of, filters in with their coverage, their TV coverage, because I'm kind of interested to see what they do here with this.
As we mentioned before, it's a different landscape now than it was 20 25, 30 plus years ago, because you didn't have these league channels, as I mentioned, like you do now. You brought up my next point, Lakeena, but I'm still going to continue anyway. Sometimes you do that, but that's okay. We keep on with the show.
It's
but
stretching it out, so which is great.
Yeah, but John Bucci-Gross and Kevin Weeks, they did some games on ESPN a couple of years ago. It wasn't an NHL game. I think it was I forgot the name of the tournament.
Was it the Frozen Four?
Well, it was not just a college tournament. It was some kind of not an Olympic tournament, but
probably one of those international tournament.
Right, well, international tournament, something like that. Yeah,
or something like that.
Right. Yeah, but they were the number one team. You could tell John Bucci-Gross, who's, if you guys remember, those of you that are our age and older, he used to host NHL Tonight on ESPN2 back in the day. Mm-hmm. And so, he has a pure passion for hockey. Of course, follow him on Twitter, and it shows right there, especially during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I just my thing is, will they have the traditional two-man booth, or the two analysts and one on ice analyst for the ESPN coverage? Because my number one team for ESPN would be Bucci, Kevin Weeks, and then you can have Barry Melrose or Brian Engblom down on ice level.
I like that. That'd be pretty good. I think kind of like what the NBC does. They have one of their they have an on ice analyst. So
yeah,
that would be cool. I mean,
and like you said, bring Steve Levy back.
Yeah. Put him somewhere.
He'll be your number two guy.
Yeah, because I'm sure he's going to be busy doing football, whether it's pro or college. So I'm wondering, like you said, I mean, I'm sure they're going to want to bring kind of like a younger, announced team. And then you just mentioned, John Bucci-Gross and Kevin Weeks. That's going to say, will they do kind of like an NHL Tonight type show? Probably not necessarily how they did it back in the day, but sort of like, maybe put on ESPN Plus or something. Have an NHL like Frozen, kind of like the old NHL on ice. Have like a sort of like a pre and post with their games of the week. I mean, it'll be interesting because, like you said, Sid, I mean, the landscape has changed so much, with television and how people consume their content. So I'm assuming that I'm sure most of the games will probably be on ESPN Plus. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I mean, this is sort of a wonder for all the people who are cord cutters, I think.
Yeah, as our good friend of the show, Mr. Terrence Tomlin, always says, you can catch those games via your bootleg cable. I'm just saying. Yeah, don't tell anybody.
It'll be interesting though. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this, because I think it's gonna be interesting. Like who's gonna be kind of like the lead, who's gonna be like the Adrian Wojnarowski, the Adam Schefter, the Jeff Passan of the NHL. I'm sure Emily Kaplan will probably be that person for them, since she does a great job. Writing, also reporting for the NHL. So. Yeah, maybe they bring up Pierre LeBun. Maybe they bring him back. I mean, it'll be interesting to see who they bring in here, because I think this has got a lot of potential for it to be a good partnership for ESPN and the NHL.
Yeah, as long as you put the right people for that to cover that sport, ESPN will be fine. They have it for the next 7 years. Now, like you mentioned before, with the network side of it, it looks like NBC may get it, but on a rumor that was Fox and Turner. I kind of wish Fox would bring it back. That's how I really got into hockey back in the mid-90s, between 1995 when the NHL came back, and then, of course, following the 1999 season, the NHL on Fox was no longer. Of course, the broadcast rights went to ABC and ESPN. Of course, ABC over the air, which carried out until the end of the 2004 season. I really like the NHL on Fox, but unfortunately, we'll probably never see the glow in the dark puck. Yes, I love that. But at the same time, though,
that's a very polarizing.
The number one game of the week outside the Stanley Cup final. If you had the number one game of the week, you would get that game with the glowing puck.
Yeah.
Because Chicago at that time, they were still good, but we didn't get those games with the glowing puck, and I'm mad about that.
We did not. People forget. We did not have a glowing puck, those Blackhawk games when they were on. It was
usually the Rangers or the Devils, the Flyers.
The Kings were actually starting to kind of get in, kind of become that top team. I think the Sharks were just starting to become, one of the top teams then. So, we didn't get it. I'm a little miffed about that. Too, but
the Penguins too, with Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr. Ooh.
When they were still very good and competing, for cups then. So, Yeah, I'm hoping that this works out for for all parties. Like I said, we'll see. It's not official yet. It looks like NBC will get that other package, so it'll be interesting though. But I'm glad the NHL is back on ESPN. I think it's long overdue, and hopefully, if they got look, you got the people already there, who are hockey knowledgeable people. Try to get them in there, and you'll be in good shape if you're ESPN and ABC.
Yeah, I think they'll be better off without Stephen A. and Max pretending they know hockey and they don't. No
Probably,
disrespect, but
probably not. I think
Yeah, can you imagine Stephen A. yelling about Patrick Kane? What the hell's a spinorama? Roll Stephen A. A spinorama is where you spin a 360 and you shoot the puck. It's not a slam dunk, but it's pretty damn close. Okay.
Well, maybe you get Kevin Weeks or Billy Moses. I know Barry Moses is there during the playoffs. I know they have him on First Take. So maybe have Kevin Weeks on, or whoever else they get to to be an analyst, game or in studio analyst. So they may do it that way and maybe not have Stephen A. and Max yelling about hockey, which I'm sure neither of them will probably watch a lot. So no disrespect, but I'm just saying. So. But like I said, this will be interesting. This will be an interesting partnership, and I can't wait to see how it goes because, like I said, this has been long overdue, and people have been clamoring for years. Even their own ESPN's own personalities have been clamoring for years. So now you got your chance, your shot, and I'm sure they'll do a great job.
Yes, they will. Anything else before we call it a day and make our big announcement?
Well, let's see here. Well, Kaitlin, mentioned earlier, Tom Brady has signed an extension with the Bucks. I mean, not a big surprise. I don't think any of us thought that would happen. That's
part for salary cap reasons too. I've heard. So
yeah. And they actually just announced that they're actually going to the Chiefs are going to restructure Mahomes' contract because.
What a shock!
They've had to let go of his two top linemen, Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. I mean, they had, that's the reason why they had to let them go. You had both of them are Pro Bowlers, and especially with Fisher not being able to play in the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, you saw what the Tampa defense did to Mahomes. So they had no choice but to release him, and unfortunately, of course, now they got to restructure Mahomes' contract. And I just saw that the Bills have had to restructure some of their contracts, some of their top guys. Let me look that up for a second. Mario Addison, he had to restructure his deal. Mm-hmm. Mitch Morris and Vernon Butler, they had to restructure their deals, and also some releases. I know the Chargers just released their Pro Bowl guard Trey Turner. So that's $11 million that they took off the books for the Chargers. So we said this, a lot of names, mm-hmm. Darryl Williams, they got signed to an extension with the Bills, but like we've been saying, a lot of guys, there are going to be a lot of familiar names that are going to be cut or released, or at the very least, restructuring their deals.
Before we get to Dak Prescott, Lakeena, Eric Fisher, I heard a couple of people say this yesterday morning. Do you think that the Bears would take a chance on him since Matt Nagy worked with those players, especially Eric Fisher, particularly in Kansas City? I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, let me see how old he is. He's got to be like near 30 or just barely over 30. Okay, he just turned 30 in January, so he's still young.
That's old age for the NFL.
But that's old age, though, for an O-lineman. And plus, he's coming off an Achilles, tear. So, you got to think that that's going to be an issue. And look, the Bears have already had their issues with O-line for years. So I don't know. I mean, would you look, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of veteran, people. I'm sure Baltimore, I'm sure it's going to need an O-lineman. The Cardinals, the 49ers, probably the Seahawks, to kind of, sort of, make it a little bit, snazzy up for Russell Wilson, and maybe, hey, you can
Russell, please stay.
Here's a Pro Bowler. Here's a Pro Bowl attacker, right? O-lineman right here. Come on, please stay. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm sure he'll definitely have some contending teams vying for his services, no doubt.
I wouldn't be surprised. Now, wrapping up here, yes, you're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports On with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Dak Prescott signed a 4-year, I believe, $168 million deal. I forgot how much of that is guaranteed, but there's a no-trade clause in there. He had a couple
Yes.
other perks in there as well. So congratulations to Mr. Prescott for get that new deal.
Yep.
Lakeena, as you mentioned before, and this is going to affect Dallas. One, I said last year, even though Prescott was putting up great numbers, their defense was horrible. Jerry Jones has a lot of the work to do, along with his son, to try to fix their defense. You may have to cut a few guys and a few other ones like Amari Cooper, their wide receiver, who they signed to an extension, or Ezekiel Elliott, who signed his extension before the start, I believe, last season.
Yep.
Last season he had the worst season of his career, so you may have to ask those two guys to restructure their deals.
Yeah, I think that's probably what you're going to have to do, right? I mean, look, I'm happy for Dak. I mean, he totally deserves it. He bet on himself and he won.
Yeah.
But like you said, so the way the salary cap is set up is $182.5 million. So, and there's still a lot of teams, the Cowboys included, they're over that. And so, $160 million for 4 years. I think about I don't know how much, I think half of it is guaranteed, But I mean, look, he definitely earned it. And I kind of feel like it'll be interesting to see what they do with this, because that defense was putrid last year. So they may have to get rid of maybe Amari Cooper, unfortunately, to kind of, or at the very least restructure his deal to kind of make some room for some, a defensive guy. I don't know. What do you think?
I mentioned before, yeah, it is a complex issue, not just for the Cowboys, but everybody around the National Football League. So you're going to see some more names, surprising names, get cut here in the next week or so. So we're going to be just as complex and surprised as you are out there in the listening and viewing public. So get ready, as the NFL likes to soak up this kind of stuff during the offseason to keep their names out there. Well, this is unprecedented times, even though we're starting to get back to normal a little bit. We're at the starting point. In the NFL, in the news, it just keeps going on day by day.
You kind of have to think of it that way, right, Sid? I mean, look, I mean, Pernell McPhee, re-signed with the Ravens on a pretty.
He's still playing.
Yeah, he was actually pretty productive for the Ravens, believe it or not. Aaron Jones is out there now. The Packers decided not to tag him, so now he's going to be out on the open market. So look, there's definitely going to be some guys. Don't be surprised if you see some guys in new places because of the way the salary cap is structured, the way some teams may not be able to spend as much as they want, or maybe not sign for as big of a contract as they want. So it's going to be very interesting once the new league starts next week, because there's going to be a lot of movement, I think.
Yep, there should be a lot of movement, and it's going to be interesting to see who bosses up their roster to try to get some of that cap, and it's going to be interesting. And then we have the draft next month. It's only going to get hotter, as we all like to call it, Lakeena, especially when our guy Jason Pfeiffer was with us. It's lion season. And I'm sure we're going to get that to more next week, but as far as the draft is concerned, so it's a lot of moving parts yet to be determined.
One interesting thing about it is that the teams will be allowed in their draft rooms for this year's draft. Of course, with mask and distancing and stuff like that. So unfortunately, we won't see Cliff Kingsbury's house again, unfortunately, or
Jerry Jones's. Well, we'll see Jerry Jones's ball. I don't know what will be draft time, but
yeah, exactly. We won't see Brian Flores.
Get on the boat.
Yeah, we won't see Brian Flores' adorable sons, with excitement whenever their dad get a chance to draft. So we won't see those moments, but I guess it's a good thing, to get back to some type of normalcy, like Kaitlin said earlier.
Yes.
All right. I think there was
it's time if you can hear the drum beat. Oh, no, you do it better. Thank you. Yeah. We have a big show announcement. Lakeena, take it away.
Well, much like what we did for the Super Bowl about a little over a month ago, we're going to be doing a similar, live stream for Selection Sunday. At about 6.
Yay!
Yeah, right after the brackets are announced, about 6 o'clock. 6-ish. Tomorrow night right after the
Central Standard Time.
Yeah, Central Standard Time. I got to make sure. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that's 4 p.m. in the West.
Yeah, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So don't forget about our folks in the Mountain Times, our friends in the Mountain Time. So, but we're going to be doing a live stream Selection Sunday. We're going to break down the brackets. We'll talk about any potential upsets that we see, and hopefully there will be no issues to come about, as we unfortunately we saw for the last few days. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Gabe Salgado, from Alton Sports, also does some work for WGN Radio. He'll be with us. He's a big college hoops expert. He's really good, with the brackets and stuff like that. So he'll break down it with us, and hopefully we'll have some other people on. We'll announce that, in due time. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And look, it's going to be myself, Sid, and Kyle, and also Gabe too. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, you can check out that show via the Twitter at War Media. Once again, at War Media, you can get the live feed there. Also, you can go to our Twitter pages as well as Shaky Eddie at Keena.
At Keena McGee on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll tweet out the live links as on tomorrow night as the gets close to showtime. So you can watch it live with us. Maybe you can ask us a question or two, see who you have in this year's tournament. Remember last year, we didn't have it this year. We get it back, provided that we don't have any other serious issues. This year's tournament should be like no other.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting too. We'll talk about it on tomorrow night, but it'll be interesting. How, especially like I said earlier with the West Coast teams. Some of them will probably have to play like at 9, 10 in the morning. Their time, and it's gonna be interesting with their body clocks since they're not used to it. So it's gonna be very different. Hopefully, that goes off without a hitch. Hopefully, we'll see Virginia and Kansas. Hopefully, things will be okay with them. With the testing and whatnot, because I think they say you have like seven negative tests with at least 6 players. I'm sure they're gonna adjust that, depending on everything. But fingers crossed that we'll be able to have a tournament and things will go off without a hitch.
Yeah. On that note, you can follow yours truly once again at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com, for more information. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. You can also listen to this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming from the War Media family by simply type it in that search engine box, War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. Type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And we're also on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media on YouTube. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live as we blow you kisses and take our bows. Thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, and we are unapologetically fun.
Yeah, remember you can follow shows like In the Scope with our buddy Josh Hicks. That's David's show, and some of all the other great shows here on War on Anchor, War Media, on all the platforms like Sid just said. So look, you got places where you can find us. So we're here.
No excuses, folks. No excuses.
None at all. So it's gonna come back to earth this weekend with the weather, but it should be fun. So, but still, keep your hands sanitized, wear your mask, and keep your distance. We're almost there, folks. Just keep churning along. We're almost there. All right. Go ahead, Sid.
No. Wait for you to wrap up.
No, you go it.
Okay. Until next time, for Lakeena, I'm Sid. You're listening to Second City Sports. Holla!
And we'll see you on Sunday. Tomorrow.